Welcome to the Borderlands Trail, an ultra running podcast. Man, there's been a lot that's happened since last time we even hit record on here. Wolfie's been to California. I changed apartments. We're just kind of all over the place, but we are here and ready. Borderlands. All right, we're coming in hard today with a lot of stuff. We're talking Hardrock. We're not giving Hardrock the same treatment we gave Western states. And through the course of this, maybe you'll understand why. Maybe we're wrong, and maybe Hardrock's wrong. Maybe someone else is wrong. But at the very least, we're going to put ourselves out there and say it's worth this episode. But is it worth the full lead up, the full coverage that we gave Western states? To be determined. The month of July, I am just sort of stepping back from the crazy clip that we go at here, Borderlands, to put out content, to just really rethink high level. What could the next 12 months look like? Because Wolfie and I went super hard this last year, last 6 to 8 months, really even hardest. Wolfie was putting out a monologue a week, and we were putting out a Bad Runner's Take every week, and the states debates, and then the Western states coverage. And sometimes you just need a breath to make sure that all of the work that you're doing is taking in the right direction. So you'll see slower output in the month of July, and then mid-August-ish, you're going to see us back up at momentum, hopefully better than ever, more focused than ever, more intentional than ever. But, okay, today, Hardrock. The Hyperlight Hotline is with us today. We're talking about a run that Wolfie went on. Surprised me. All of a sudden, in Max's stories, you see a picture of Wolfie standing there next to Dan Green, and my mind's blown. I wish I was there, but I wasn't, and so we're going to hear about that. And Wolfie has a race coming up.
It's a bad runner's take. It's a bad runner's take. It's a bad runner's take. He's the Kipchoge of running back.
Brian, I'm super excited to hear about the run and to hear about your race and talk Outrider and Hyperlight Hotline and go Hardrock. So let's just go right into Hardrock. Are you ready?
Let's go, buddy.
All right.
Absence makes the heart grow fonder. It's been too long, buddy.
It has been, especially since we were together all day, every day
Yeah.
for a while, I felt like.
I know.
Okay, Hardrock is 33,000 feet of climb, 11,000 feet average above sea level, loop course. You kiss the rock at the end, a 48-hour cutoff. All the metrics point to this just being a big, hard race. 146 runners, if my math was correct. Katie Scheid and Zach Miller among the banner participants this year. Assume that everyone assumes, all media, everyone who's in the world of trail running just assumes that we all know and love Hardrock with the same intensity that we know and love Western states. And for me personally, it's just never fully grabbed my imagination. And I don't know what it is. And I feel like, I see Katie Scheid and Zach Miller run it. You see, all the greats have gone through and run it. The runners that we love, the runners that we're glued to when they run races. But there's something about Hardrock to me that feels like it's for them, which they deserve. There's a legacy piece to it that if you don't get a victory at Hardrock, then your resume, your case for being one of the greats isn't complete. Though in and of itself, the race itself doesn't have the same enthusiasm to me. But it's got to be on the resume. It's got to be in the history. I think it scratches an itch for them. They want to get out. There's the competition piece. I don't think there's prize money. We'll get into that. Euro runners fantasize it quite a bit over here. When I was at Paris Fashion Week, everyone I talked to, Lee at Kale, romanticized about Hardrock. Patrick Stangby, it's like his banner race that he wants to run. A lot of people over here, when they think about America, for some reason, before Western states, even they think about a race that's even harder to get into in Hardrock. So I just don't fully understand Hardrock. Though Katie Scheid is, you've heard me a lot say that, I think Katie is going to make a case for being the greatest by the time her career is done. So she's got to get more time on task, I guess, at Hardrock. And of course, Zach Miller, just fun to see him race anytime, but it hasn't captured my imagination the same way Western states has. What do you think it is about Hardrock that captures the imagination of so many people, and where are you at on it?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to really be concise in communicating an answer to this question, because I think there's different doors you can enter into that answer and land at different places, right? I think you touched on a lot there. just looking at it from a professional perspective, it's not even agreed upon by the professionals, that it's a must-do race in your, resume to be considered one of the greats. I mean, Jim hasn't raced it yet. He tried to like FKT it, but he's very much immersed in the culture and the community. Seems like he always kind of goes up there during Hardrock after states to unwind and crew and pace and be part of the culture there. So there is certainly something that I can point to and understand why it's appealing to people who love, big days, long days, and big mountains. With all the challenges in the United States with permitting and wilderness restrictions and access, right? Like this course, going through all the different, small mountainous communities, ski towns, staying at elevation. It's a looped course, so it's very reminiscent of one of the big races over in Europe. I can see why the course itself is a massive draw to people who, find that style of racing attractive. But yeah, I mean, it's got a lot of ingredients that you would think would put out, something that we all love, right? Like a sheet cake, like a birthday cake, right? Like everybody would love it, right? But at the end of the day, you put all these ingredients in a mixing bowl, and the product that comes out, it's almost an acquired taste where, you have to explain to people in the United States why, or you have to have this nuanced conversation with people who don't quite understand it. So yeah, for me, I've always landed with Hardrock feeling like it fits more like a Barkley. And with Barkley, we kind of celebrate its mystique. The entry process is very mystique. You have to really put effort in to seek out exactly how you get into this race. And it's kind of, a democracy where like there's a small group of people who get to decide who's in and who's out, and they're not filling, the maximum capacity. They're filling to the maximum, what they think provides the best experience race day. So, again, it's a popular race for people to attend. But for the professionals, it's not even billed as a race, right? It's its own catch slogan doesn't even call it a race. So yeah, it hypocrisizes itself in so many different ways that it's hard to truly answer that as concise as I'd like.
Yeah, here's what's crazy to me when I look at the roster running it. Jermaine Grangier, Mathieu Blanchard, Ludovic Pomeray, three like world-class French runners.
Right.
Like it's just more, I think it's more popular in the ultra dirtbag community of America. I saw a lot of my Utah, buddies, people I know in Utah have been trying to get in it for years. They're in it this year. Kyle Markisic for one, who great guy. Love to see him in it. It feels like for Americans, it's the niche dirtbags because it's an old race. But for the French and for the Europeans, it's like it's bringing out their best, which to me is, I guess I'm just surprised that this race that lets in 146 people is on Mathieu Blanchard, who, you look at his following online, you look at his massive appeal in the French market, that they prioritize Hardrock says a lot to me. It's just flying right over my head.
Well, I think it's because, again, it's not the depth of competition that they're seeking. It's the experience on the course that they're pursuing.
Yeah.
Right. And so like we just had Western States, and we just talked a lot about Killian not going back to Western States in the last 14 years. In that period of time, he ran Hardrock 3 times, I believe. And so it just goes to show you, again, for the European to travel all the way over here, they're not wanting to experience a Western States style course, or if they do, it's one and done. And for others, it's like maybe they want to run Hardrock once to get it done off of their, resume, and then they'll go back and race where the biggest competition is. Again, I think if we unlocked more of the land, or if there was more access and whatever, you could debate that, amongst yourselves. We're not here to have that conversation today. But again, I think Hardrock may not be as big of a draw if there were other options in the United States that, utilized the topography and the land that has a profile similar to Hardrock.
Yeah, I think to be generous about Hardrock, it's to your point of what you said throughout Western States is that, Western States board might look over at Hardrock board, which is chaired by Megan Hicks of I Run Far. I mean, to me, that's instant street cred. I'm a huge I Run Far fan. I'm a product of I Run Far's content dating back to the beginning. But if you look at what matters to this community, it really is able to just be its own community. It's able to thrive and survive and exist off of itself. There's going to be we know that there's more from Carl Meltzer, Speed Goat. He's saying there's more media on course than there is runners. And so we know that it's going to be covered and all that, but this race really can just exist in and of itself. And I think a lot of people really wouldn't mind that. And to your point, the only reason I'm seeing it that way is because at one point you were saying Western States looks over there. Sometimes they sort of operate that too. They wish they could just be about the runners in the race in that moment, where Western States carries the load, carries the water for the professionalization of the sport. Hardrock is able to just be this little small 145 person race in the Alps like mountains.
Yeah, I mean, for a course or for a race that's very exclusive and tough to get in for the first time, it seems like it gets easier to get in the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth
like
time.
a Badwater, right?
For whatever reason, it just seems like the race kind of does heavily prioritize having a tenured and experienced field. I think the RD on other podcasts I've heard say, for them, it's like if somebody's ran the course 4 or 5 times, and that's somebody with experience that's kind of keeping the rest of the field who it's their first time safe, right? Like if they encounter issues on the course, like there are additional eyes and ears out there, to keep right. But again, you only have 146 spaces. And so it's just wild to hear if you've engraced yourself into the community, you've gotten in, the board likes you, you do all the community service, you're active, you're present, you can get back into this race. Like it's wild to see how many people run the race 4 or 5 times, where something like Western States, you run it once and you're done again for 10 years. It doesn't matter, what you've done to ingrace yourself with the board.
Yeah. Now, is there any level of you, just as a fan of running, that looks forward to this race? Is there anything that's on your mind related to it? Just as a fan, all that stuff aside, do you look at this and think, oh, I'm excited to see Zach run, or, let's see Katie get another victory? Like, is anything like that capture your imagination?
It's gotten harder and harder because as the depths of the fields have increased in other races like Black Canyons, right? The Golden Ticket Series, we'll say, or, the UTMB series, Hardrock again only usually has a field that's 4 to 8 deep on the men's and women's field of, people who are going to show up at other marquee races. And so it's one of the shallowest fields for competition depth wise. And so you're just kind of looking at it, excited to see a couple names go out and race against each other. And I think the growth of the sport depth wise has made Hardrock feel even of a smaller competition. I mean, if you think 8 years ago, you line up at Black Canyon, there might be 20 people on both sides that you were familiar with, 10. And so Hardrock didn't feel that polarizing of a difference in field size because they would get 6 or 8. It wasn't that big of a deal.
Yeah.
But now it's wild when you're 50 deep at a Black Canyon race and Hardrock's got 6.
Yeah, that's a good point. Now, all of a sudden, these other big races where it's not fully centralized in the way that we're excited about, where the same, the best of the best runners are always at this same race every year. But you're right. When you look at a race where there's 50 people, 50 deep of contenders, that's, as a fan, that's where I want to be. You're exactly right. When it's 5 or 6, again, I think they're running it for themselves, and which they're fully allowed to do.
Oh yeah.
But they're just, it's the bucket list thing. It's there's obviously competition, but they're competition with themselves. I think I like that the women's course record is like 26 hours. To me, if I ran that course, I may not even hit the 48-hour cutoff. But my point is, I love that there's a race that has someone out through the sunset, sunrise, and the entire part of the day. Because seeing first place finish at Western States in 14 hours, 14 and a half hours. They don't know totally what it's like, but I love these races that force the best of the best to be out for a full 24-hour day plus. So, I just think there's a lot of stuff that I think Hardrock to me is charming, and it's too damn hard to be charming. So I'm probably never going to even try.
Yeah, I mean, I get why the Europeans, because again, if they're used to running UTMB style races where
Yeah.
the field size is massive, right? Like you think about how many spectators are on course, how many competitors are there. I mean, you juxtapose that against Hardrock, and it's again as beautiful of a course, or more so, than these French races.
Yeah.
And the field size is so small, so intimate, so they truly get kind of a solidarity experience that they can't replicate usually in their professional careers. So I get it. It makes sense, but again, it's like that acquired taste. It's something that for you to invest a lot of training, a lot of time to want to go race. I don't necessarily resonate with that mindset. But again, it's a spectacle. The media shows up around it. There's some history. So it is, as a fan, still something that I'll, pay attention to and see what happens. Like Ludo, when having somebody, win that race, at his age in the fashion that he did was fantastic. It was one of the best stories, I think, of last year.
Yeah. I think Tommy Lewis is a great example of someone in the UK who's likes the American 100-miler, but especially if it's your first, you can't get into Hardrock. He's running Devil's Gulch up in Wenatchee, Washington. It's a beast of a race in terms of heat exposure. And he's talked about, just being excited to feel the American dirtbag race experience. And that one's even like 35 people. So, he's getting it even more where it's really built on community. The difference between 145 and 35 really isn't a ton because you're going to spread out so much anyways. Right. With both of them. There's just zero media coverage, and you are truly doing something like a Devil's Gulch for the love of it. And I think that's a piece of, when Europe sees Western states, they think, okay, is UTMB kind of like that? Yeah, there's less. It's going to be hard to get into, but I can always get into UTMB, the hoops to get there, whatever I can. But the experience for Hardrock is unmatched if you don't dig in. The same way that when we look over at Europe, we see UTMB, but there's really 1,000 other races that we could all get into any given day. We just don't know about them. So I think they know about Hardrock. They see Hardrock and think, oh, that would be cool. I'd love to do that. When in reality, there's Devil's Gulch that has 35 people, and there's, several hundred that, you could have a really nice, intimate dirtbag American classic experience.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I think, again, for you and I, it'd be great if we had a third voice here who does, romanticize about Hardrock just to balance the conversation. But again, for us, I think in the type of training that we have access to, and I think, the way that we engage with the sport as a runner, it just doesn't connect with us as wanting to go get our, shoes on the ground and participate there. But we'll be there celebrating and, lifting up the voices. And I got a buddy here that I'm close with that's running the race. He's ran it a few different times. And so we'll certainly be cheering on Kyle, as it gets closer to race day.
Yeah. Yeah. So all that to say, at the end of the day, we make our critiques, we make our sort of honest takes on things, but we are fans of running, and I'm going to be following it. And I hope that this is the type of race I want to follow. The I Run Far Twitter X feed, it's just that classic. I want to see those photos. Those are often in more real time than anything else. And especially now if they're carrying, internet devices with them that allow them to send it up Starlinks. So all that aside, I'm stoked, especially to see Zach Miller and Katie Scheid in a race, two favorites to just watch them because they both always put on a good show.
Yeah, it's been far too long for us to have a race experience as a fan of Zach Miller. So
that's right.
Hope he has a
day out.
This is a
good one. This is a good one for him. All right. Hyperlight Hotline.
That's 786-667-3649. Hyperlight Hotline.
Got it.
Jack Black. That was a little Jack Black. It's the Hyperlight Hotline. Hyperlight Liquid Performance, absolutely crushing it out there. You see it showing up more and more. They've got, awesome athletes, and Emily Hawgood, Hans Troyer, Matt Daniels, the list goes on. The dudes were just on the Mid-Packer pod this week, the owners. There's just no doubt there's just lots of good stuff surrounding this company, and it's because there's good guys at the top. And the product, if the product sucked, none of this momentum would mean anything. So these guys are doing great. Before we get to the hotline, you get what give us some high-level thoughts on the product.
Yeah, first that riff, that was a nice little liquid.
Yeah, shout out to Ben
riff
Roby
right there. Yeah, that was fantastic. I love it. I met the guys at Black Canyon, and then bought the bags myself. I think as runners, we're always kind of tinkering a little bit to fine tune, fueling and, different types of ways to improve our performance, or at least, kick the bonk down the road as far as we can in these things. And
Yeah.
it was long overdue. I think I relied on a product, that I was using for years just because it was habit and easy to acquire. But Hyperlight, again, it's such a simple way to easily consume either 500 grams of sodium and 50 carbs, or 1,000 grams of sodium and 100 grams of carbs. And those two numbers, I think, are applicable for everyone. They're numbers you definitely want to hit, whether your sweat rate is high or low. I don't think you want to go anything less than 500 milligrams of sodium. And for me, in my climate where I race in Arizona, like, it's probably critical. And I was quite dumb to not pay attention to sodium levels before this. So again, if you're just somebody that's, scoop it and go, then, Hyperlight's the way to go, because it solves a lot of problems that you don't necessarily want to devote the time to figure out and solve. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Which is me. Like, I think that's what I like about it is, I'm not an overthinker. In fact, I'm an underthinker, and especially in the race. And, my mind, I start getting focused on other things. Like to have something that's just like, I'm not having to do a ton of math on is wildly critical, because I'll start doing math because I love numbers, but my math is just wrong. It's off.
Right.
And I start to get, everything just starts to then go downhill. So yeah, I love the simplicity of how they present it.
Absolutely. And again, that's kind of where I went down the rabbit hole with this, is like, dude, fueling is very much self-expression. Like sometimes I think people don't want Mortons because they're like, I don't know, that's like for roadies. That's for people who are so damn serious and they wear half tights everywhere they go. And, they're only, they're talking about splits and gaps, right? Like,
Yeah.
I couldn't see you using Morton. Like, I don't know that you would reach for Morton first, right? Or Precision, or, some of these things that are just very unapproachable, right? They're like 5-star French dining. And it's like, I just want to walk in flip flops and shorts, that's Hyperlight.
Yes.
Like Hyperlight it's a serious performance product made by two dudes who just get dirty as hell, like Emery was at Western States all day crewing the athletes, that he had in the race. He had 3 of them there. So he had Hans, Hannah, and who was the other one? All good.
Yeah.
And so he gets done crewing everybody, and then he goes back and paces a dude, who was like a 28-hour finisher. And so, they live the life. And so it's pretty cool, I think, as trail runners, to support a brand, support guys who are out there living the life.
I love it. And so they support our hotline. We take calls from you all, 786-667-3649. That's if you're in America. That one's just easier. And if you're international, though, we do have something that you can click, the Hyperlight hotline. The link's in the show notes. It's in the bio of Instagram, all of that. But we want to hear from you. We want to hear from you a lot. We've got a few calls here. We're going to take our first one here. Some of these are a little bit older because we were so focused on Western states. We weren't taking calls for a while, but here we go.
Andrew in Florida. Prize money for Western states. Fan-supported prize money. Start a little Patreon, take donations, however you figure out how to do it. Venmo. Whatever the collective total is, divided in half and give the top male and top female half of the prize purse. And I think that'll draw some attention, and maybe Western states probably won't ever offer prize money, but it'd be a start.
Yeah. Okay. So crowdsourcing the prize purse. The thing here's where we're at. We're kind of living in this space at Borderlands with us. Like we're kind of like I like to think of us as the and one of trail. We're not the NBA, but we're kind of existing out here on our own, bandit wise, doing our own stuff. We did our own Western States coverage without any affiliation to Western States. So I'm super comfortable. In fact, even prefer living out in this sort of bandit and one space. And one was a basketball league and a basketball presence that didn't need the NBA because it was able to be self-sufficient, ended up getting a bigger audience than the NBA. But creating prize money in the auxiliary, like in that space out there, I like it as a statement. I don't believe it's the way to go ongoing, but as like a PR stunt and statement to shed light on the problem, I like it. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think it's sustainable, for one. And I don't know necessarily that many of the athletes would also feel as good at taking prize money from the fans versus the brands or those directly profiting off of their performances, right? So again, I think long term is we've just got to try and do a better job of, holding their feet to the fire. And like, if
Yeah.
you guys enjoy the mantle, if you guys don't take for granted our support, whether it's the elite athlete or, the passionate fan. And we're making it too easy for them to do things that we don't like. And so how do you disrupt that? Right?
Yeah.
Like, is the power centralized around a board of a few people, or is the power centralized around the tens of thousands, who continue to make that what it is every year? And
Right.
so, I think again, the prize money's got to come from within the source. And the voices like you and I and the caller need to be again, just like that land bill that got, shelved, right?
Right.
It was the people, it was the voice, it was the activation, right? So if
Yeah.
we had that same type of activation around something like prize money, albeit it's not as moral, but
Right.
it could work.
I for me, as a final thought here, the person who's on the other side of it, say we create a prize purse and it's a reasonable amount and we do it one time as a publicity thing to like shed light on it. I still struggle, even though they exist, to say the person who's saying, no, Caleb Olson, you should not get money. Like we will not give you money. Man, I just can't imagine that person sitting across the table from Caleb saying,
Right.
no, nothing, you get nothing. It's
You
such
cut
an
out there for a
interesting thing
second.
so I wonder if at some point when the feet do get held to the fire and maybe we get loud enough and enough people get loud, like, they're not gonna, I don't think they will say no for much longer. If, as you say, we're all sort of united in saying we just want to see these super hard workers get paid. Like, this is like a pro worker stance to pay the workers,
Right. But again, like, I'm starting to lose a little bit of the intensity behind this because I need more of the elites who are the benefactors of this to come
To speak
alongside,
up. Yeah.
join me in this fight. Like,
Yes.
I don't want to feel like I'm leading out in front alone. Like, that
Yep.
makes no sense to me. And
Yep.
so,
Yeah. Great point.
I can renew the battery, I can throw fuel on the fire,
Yeah.
but I got to get you guys on board here. Got to get
We,
the
we,
women.
we want to know we're
Right.
fighting a fight that they want us to be fighting. Cause then if they don't want prize money and no one wants to pay them, well, I don't know what you do with that, but I think they do want it. They're just unwilling to say it. So I'm with you. That'll probably be some of our work in ongoing, is to try and find the ones who want to get a little bit more vocal and get vocal with them.
Right. Yeah, maybe we do a series that's, kind of like states debates, but just purely focused around prize money with different people. And, I don't know what it is, but we'll figure it out.
The Outrider running league, I've had a lot of interest, a lot of people reaching out, asking different questions. I thought maybe we'd just take a minute and talk about it. This is from our imagination of just, we want to compete like this. And we thought this would be a fun way to activate the community. Pricing right now for a full team is $450. That's for 3 people. Or if you're one person who just wants to be thrown into a pot and us do the work to pair you, it's $175. I'm upfront with the pricing on that here, just because there's a lot of stuff that goes into this. So let me just say what goes into managing Outrider League. First off, we're looking for 8 teams of 3. We'll have a commissioner and we'll have referees. And the role of the commissioner is to work with each team, because you're going to all have to submit routes at the beginning of the season. We have to have pre-approved routes. You can't just go run any old 10K, any old 30K. We need to know what you're going to be running, because it's important that we make sure that the team from Florida that's competing against the team from Salt Lake, that there's some level of parity. There's some level of, evenness in those routes. So if someone has net downhill just to get a faster time, that doesn't make sense. So you can't just go run whatever you want to run. So we'll have the commissioner that works with each teams to get that right. Then we're going to have referees, because these are going to be, it's a head-to-head round robin league. So the team from Florida will play the team from Salt Lake one week. Then the team from Florida will play the team from New York. And then there's going to be the dispersed team that has someone in the UK and someone in Alabama. So it's just a lot of moving parts, and there's going to be a head to head, and there's going to be a winner of each head to head, and you're going to get a score, or just like if you're playing in a football league where you've got 2 losses and 1 win, highly unlikely because we're going to be down to the second on these times that we're going to have any ties. And then we're going to go into a playoff season, and each of these head to head playoff season and regular season games are going to have a referee just to make sure that everyone ran the route appropriately. No corners were cut on purpose or on accident. And then at the end of the week, they'll report to the commissioner, and the commissioner will do a weekly announcement, hopefully wearing a suit and tie, something professional, something nice. And then we're going to go into a championship week of the remaining 2 teams. So the playoffs will be seeded. Then we'll go into a championship with 2 teams, and there will be 1 winner. And the question has been from a few of you is, well, what do the winners get? We're still working on that. We know it's going to be valuable, but we are still working with sponsors to bring that together. So I know that was a holdup for some of you to want to know what it was. I can guarantee this: the value to each runner of winning will be more than what they paid. So if you each pay $150 to get in, I guarantee you what you will get as for winning the league will be worth more than the money that you put into the league. But we're still trying to figure that part out. Okay. Brian, what have I missed? What do you think could use clarity? What observations, thoughts do you have about Outrider?
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited about it.
Me
I think
too.
the more exposure I've gotten to kind of overseas running culture, whether it's, club cross country that you can do as a, 30-year-old, 40-year-old runner,
Yeah.
Club runs, park runs, right? Like they have a very robust amateur competitive running league overseas. And we don't have that here, right? Like we have a lot of basketball recs, softball leagues. You can go play golf in men's clubs and et cetera. But we want to create that here, and we want to do it on trail. So we want to kind of merge these 2 concepts together of the American Rec League and the European, cross country road running, and bring this trail league together. We know that people who run trail, who identify as ultra runners, they already have, robust training that they're doing. You know what I mean? And so this is just maybe building some competition around 1 or 2 of the runs you're already doing, and building that camaraderie, that you get with a team. So you can, connect with your buddies, have fun, talk a little trash with guys from the other leagues, just create that community vibe, around Outrider.
Yeah. I mean, if I were just having fun here and dreaming long-term, like we do a few of these seasons where you're kind of spread out all over, and then, man, what a dream it would be to have an in-person league. Like, I've seen my dude Inky Steve up in Manchester. They have leagues where they'll get together. What if there's 8 teams in one market, and those 8 teams can have some version of in-person competitions, like the Monday night 10K team 10Ks, where they're out on the same course. And, just this exact idea of building toward bringing competition for those of us who aren't going to be competitive, even in our own age groups. But this is going to bring, like, if it works out for me to be able to actually compete in this league, I'm really excited. I know that it will push me to run faster. And as the guys at SOAR said in a coffee meeting, Rob said, fast is fun and fun is fast. And I think that's that, I don't always think that way. And I think this would bring that out in me. And I think it would bring it out in everybody who runs it, regardless of what fast means to you. It will be it'll make you run faster, thinking about going hard for your team, thinking about, your results being public. And it feels motivating to me.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think, having like a championship in-person race would be awesome. You know what I mean? Like, use the Salt Lake 50K as the Outrider championship, and again, that's big, bold goals, but that's kind of what, we're committed to it. So anybody that thinks like you're going to sign up, throw us your money, and then, we're going to abandon you, like that's not the situation at all. We're fully invested and committed to this being successful in its inaugural year, and then continuing to grow and polish up year after year, or at least season after season. We don't plan on this just being one season per year. I think we plan on having multiple seasons, during the calendar year as obviously weather permits.
Yeah. So use discount code Outrider when you are checking out for the individual or for the team. Right now, we're doing 20% for the month of July, 20% off. We want to see you all sign up. Season begins September 1st. There's a lot of education that'll go into this. We'll be giving you lots of stuff. If you go to borderlands.cc/outrider. You can go learn about the league, and then you can also click to register there. But we know there's education. There's a rule book. It's just like if you were going to, you take for granted that you know the rules of football or soccer off the top of your head, when in all reality, they're complex. Like I try and sit and watch with my kids, and I realize how much explaining I have to do on every level. There's rules here, and we're leaning all the way into trying to create a nice, clear rule book that will serve us into the future. We know it's not perfect, and we're going to work on it as we have the leagues, but hope you guys jump in with us. Borderlands.cc/outrider and use code outrider for 20% off. You went on a run with Dan Green and Max, the two people we've nicknamed. How funny is that? Yeah, Trail Earnhardt and the Silver Bullet. You went on a run with both of them in California. How'd this happen? Just the three of you, right?
Well, yeah, Dan had he had a buddy of his there. I think you saw him on his Western States video. So one of his crew and Pacer was there, and then his girlfriend was there as well. So yeah, they were just traveling down from States, just living their best life in the mid-20s, man. It was disgusting to see these young kids having so much fun.
Okay, so you heard he was in the area. Did you reach out to him? Did you say, hey, can we jump in? How did Max get involved? Like, tell the story.
Well, yeah, I mean, I had to one up you and Sam over there running around Paris all week having fun. So I just figured, you know what, this will be brilliant. I know
this dirtbag kid, you more than one upped me, man. You're running with true dirtbags.
Yeah. No, we had planned to go out to Orange County for 4th of July weekend, family, friends, daughter's birthday. So just a good little trip. And so, yeah, I mean, I've talked to Max more than once. And so I reached out and just was like, hey, I'm going to be in the area. Let's get some miles together. So we put that on the calendar. And then I think it was like Monday, Tuesday, I saw him and Dan were running together. And so I asked Dan, I said, how long are you in Orange County for? So he messaged me back, and I said, all right, well, let's just all three connect then. So then, yeah, we had a nice little run, probably 2 miles from where I was staying with my buddy. So it was perfect. We met down at this, little Back Bay area in Costa Mesa, beautiful little 10-mile, paved loop around the Back Bay and Costa Mesa, Newport area. And dude, man, I mean, they're just built different.
Yeah.
Dan, especially just coming off of Western States, ran a pretty impressive time there for all things being considered, and just continued to get better. Right. I mean, I think he ran his way up into the field later, which you would not have guessed would be, his path forward.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, no, he doesn't wear it. If you just walked up to him, you would have no clue he had just got done running 100 miles 4 days previously.
Wow.
Just striding it out, ripping a nice little 10 and a half mile loop and chatting the whole time. And yeah, man, I mean, as down to earth, as humble, as unassuming as you could ever ask for. I mean, just one of the best guys, and I think that's common. I think you get around, these guys, and you see that they're just super awesome personalities and energy to be around.
What was the pace?
I think we warmed up like at 8:30, 8:45, and then it just kind of just started cutting down as the stride probably opened up. So, probably running more like 7:30s, 7:20s at some of the section in the later half. So,
that's
nothing
crazy.
that I think there's a lot of us in the 95 that, could go out there and run with them, on those days. And so that's encouraging. It's fun to know that, I'm in shape to be able to go and run with them when they're on a, casual. It wasn't, it wasn't taxing either for me. It wasn't like I was thresholding it or anything like that. So
was there any point where you just wanted to like try and push just enough to see if you could get them to breathe heavy?
No,
not at all. Okay.
No, I was like, why rush us back to the car? Let's just enjoy this.
Take it all in.
Yeah.
What do you talk about on a run like that with guys like that? Just kind of shooting the bull?
Talking about the Solomon contract, it truly did just come together days before Western States. So he's super excited about that.
Yeah.
He's got to get a passport now. So just all the fun.
That's awesome.
Life.
Is he coming to UTMB?
I think he'll be over there. Yeah. I think he'll be over there. Not to race, but again, probably just to be connecting with more of his Solomon partners. And so, again, again, just so self-deprecating as far as like, yeah, they probably just wanted me because I was in Western states. And it's like, his girlfriend had to remind, like, this guy just doesn't get it, like you've
Yeah.
done things, that are wildly impressive and,
Right.
worthy of the sponsorship and financial support that comes your way now.
You know what that tells me about a mind like that? When you play down your accomplishments, it's because in your mind you believe you can do so much more that you haven't even touched what's possible. That's just my read. This is my thing. I
Right.
think in his mind, while playful, legitimately humble, like my read on him is that he really is who he is. He wears it on his sleeve. He's not putting on a show. But I just think in that mind of his, I think he knows that he's got a lot more accolades in his future if he keeps doing what he's doing now. So I think he hears like, yeah, you beat the course record at Cocodona. You worked your way up from 18th to 12th at Western States. I think in his mind, I think he's, he knows he's just got more. And it's not like an arrogant thing. It just knows that he's got a lot out in front of him.
Right. Yeah, it was pretty cool. When we got done with the run, we went over to a local coffee shop, got some coffee, breakfast burrito, the whole gig. And I asked him, I said, hey, what do your parents think about Solomon? Like that's pretty cool, right? He kind of chuckled and was like, yeah, they didn't really know what to make of it or what to think, but they're happy, like he had been investing like 4 or 5 years working at a running shop, pursuing a professional, and they kind of see like, oh, it was worth it. You know what I mean? Kind of,
yeah, that's cool.
It doesn't really make sense yet, or they don't see the full picture of what this means. But,
Yeah.
As a parent, I think, like you and I could resonate with that. Like, okay, this is something that's sustainable, right? Yeah.
And then Max over here, and not doing so bad himself in his own world in terms of business relationships through his running with Satisfy and BPN. What was that like?
Oh, super cool. Yeah, I've wanted to connect with Max for a long time. Just, knowing him through Satisfy and, following his journey, in ultra running. Again, it's kind of been a journey of one. Like he hasn't really followed anybody else's path with success and the type of success and exposure, that he's garnered for himself. Totally respect it. And again, like, people, will sometimes get shitty, with the whole self-branding of King of Moab, which I don't get. I think it's from a naming perspective and a branding and merch perspective, it's it's brilliant. It looks good. It's fine. I have no complaints over it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, again, he's super humble as well. Like it just shows you, like, here he is reaching out with Dan. I think Max was up at Western States, and so he probably, connected with Dan at some point up there. But like, that's what I'm saying is like, these guys aren't arrogant. They're not wanting to hang around people who are as talented or more talented than them. Like they're all very self-confident and, again, just wanting to be around others that are passionate and, huge fans and love running. That's what I got out of Max. Like showed up with a huge smile, no shirt on, which is to be expected, and super excited to, show us this loop that is kind of where he trains daily. So
nice. So I forget he's an Orange County kid.
Oh yeah. He lives in Costa Mesa, not born and raised, but for all intents purposes, that's where his roots are.
Well, man, what a legendary opportunity,
dude. And then he goes and he gets engaged. So he publicly announced that on his story.
Did you have anything to do with that? I mean, you had just hung out with him.
I can't say I did anything to do with that. No, just congratulated him early because they were talking about it at breakfast. So
okay, I don't know if the ball's in Dan's court now.
Right. We'll see.
Yeah. All right. And okay, let's end on this. Your race is in a week. Here's where my head's at. Anytime I'm like this immersed, this is actually partially my problem too. When I'm this immersed within the elite version of the race, of the sport, stoked on Western States, these guys make it look easy. And I think, I feel like maybe it's just my mentality. Maybe it's easier than I'm giving. And I get out there and it's like, oh, this is hard. And I, set myself up like, oh, it's going to be better than I thought. It ends up being worse because I set my expectations so high. Does all this obsession and paying attention to the elite sport in any way alter how you are viewing your race that you're doing in a few days?
No.
So in your mind, you're just kind of, you know what you're going to go out there and try to do. You don't see some course records, all this sort of stuff, and think, oh, maybe I can do better.
No. Cause I mean, that's one of my strengths is being competitive and, wanting performance based goals, wanting
Right.
to, yeah, I mean, it's kind of second nature for me again with my athletic background, growing up
Yeah.
in team sports, running cross country in high school. Yeah. When I pin a bib, like, I know how to click into that mentality. If
Yeah.
anything, it gave me more like, motivation, hanging out with those guys, just kind of lighten the mood and
Right.
maybe want to go out there and have a great day, give it a rip.
And so do you go in this thinking I'm in it to win? Like I wouldn't be signing up if I didn't think I could win. Is that how you approach it?
Um, it kind of goes back and forth.
Yeah.
I've done a little bit of stalking, the ultra sign up list. So right now I think there's about like 70 people in there, but there's probably maybe 4 that I would consider from what I, there's always the potential for a ninja with the 0% ranking that
who doesn't have
hate.
the race
Yeah.
history on ultra sign up. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the biggest fear I think of the 95 who are trying to maybe run into a podium position is let's just hope there's no wild cards down in that 0 section.
Yeah.
These collegiate kids or something that are just, let me go try this trail thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think with where I'm at, with my abilities and what the local Aravaipa race series is like, I'm usually always trying to race into the top 5. And from there, it's just a matter of what happens on race day. Like, who shows up with what fitness. Cause that's the other thing is like, I don't go that deep to know like, oh, here's what their ranking is, but here's what their last 12 weeks of training looks like. Like I don't do that, but I just try and get a decent sense of what I think the potential is for me.
All right.
But
so
these night races are tough, man. They start at 7:30. Temperature's probably going to be over 100 degrees at the start. And then it's just technical enough to where at night it gets difficult, because your footing isn't quite as sure. You don't have the peripheral vision, to run as carelessly as you do during the day. And so it's really hard to extrapolate out the pacing for what your fitness is when you run, everything in the daylight.
Yeah. Okay. So 50K, do you have a target in mind? Do you have a goal in mind? You don't share it, but do you like in your mind?
I ran 4:59 there before. So
okay.
I would like to improve on that. That day I think was a bit more challenging. I think it was like 108 or 110 at the start. So as long as we can do better temperature wise, fitness wise, anything sub 5 on the day will be celebrated as a victory. But just ultimately go out there and give it a shot. It's a 4 looped course for the 50K, probably trying to go like maybe 110 for the first loop or two, come through on like a 440 pace, through the first half and then see what legs I have left.
Nice.
Real quick though, I picked up a piece of gear. So for this race, I'll be using the Run. I think I'm trying to make sure I get the name right. So it's Run East Peak. It's that ice bandana that Rod and Killian were using at Western States. Yeah. So again, it's supposed to be similar in improving a piece of gear that constantly bounces. You know what I mean? So when you think about how the ice bandanas always look, right? There's always just that huge bounce and vibration, right? It gets to be pretty miserable, right? Yeah. So this one, no bounce ice bandana. And I went back and looked at the videos, like it looks legit. So picked it up. It's also got a zippered pouch in the back. So again, trying to be as fast through the crude aid station as possible. So that way they can just scoop in the ice, close the zipper and be on my way. I don't have to untie it because I don't know how many times. I mean, I even saw like with the, with like the Hans crew and stuff and a couple others, those knots, man, they get tough to undo with all the weight of the ice. They get pulled pretty tight and you don't know if you're pulling it tighter or trying to undo it. So
great point.
Game changer if you can get an ice bandana that you don't actually have to take off.
What's it called again?
Was it Run East Pack, I think? Yeah. Okay. Run East Peak. Sorry. Run East Peak. I think they sold out, obviously, after Killian was wearing it. But I was able to get one before they sold out. I'm sure they're restocking. So, I'll test it out this week, see how it feels before the race. Obviously, nothing new on race day. Yeah.
Yep. All right, man. Well, let's do this again next week.
Yeah, you bet, man. Good to hear from you.
Yep. Later.